welcome with a big round of applause joining us on stage for the next presentation, Mr. Satish Kashyap, CEO and co-founder from Drona Pay, to talk on fighting financial crime in the Gen AI era. A big round of applause to Satish. Satish, welcome to the stage.
Thank you.
All over to you.
Hi. Good evening, everyone. Okay, so in your last in the series, you've got to do things to keep the audience awake for the limited time that you have. So I've tried to make this nothing about like a corporate presentation, because if this were a corporate presentation, I'm telling you for sure I'll lose my job. Okay, so that's my mark. I'm telling you what I'm aiming to do. We build next-gen risk and compliance platforms. We fight financial crime in the Gen AI era, and I wanted to walk you through some broad themes that we are seeing, some broad problems, and I've decided to take some interest and motivation from inputs from my daughter. So I'm going to use memes as a way to communicate. For anyone who has worked with a teenage kid, if you don't know your meme act, you're pretty much a failure, okay? So as I get into this session, it's going to be a test. If you can tell me which meme it is when I get there, you're doing a good job, okay? But yeah, so I said we'll start off by telling about 3 themes that we see over the last 3 years. If you've been in the banking insurance space, theme 1 was growth through partnerships. Now, whether it was embedded insurance, whether it was co-lending, whether it was co-branding, whether it was API, correspondent banking, we have a whole bunch of names, but we've had this huge drive towards saying, let's get fintechs, let's participate, let's do partnerships. The next theme was manage risk and compliance, frauds, AML, data governance, data privacy. If you didn't hear these words, then you've been sleeping all day, basically. Yeah. And the other theme on top of all of this was that banks, financial institutions, insurance companies wanted to participate and partner because they said we may not be able to adopt technology fast enough. Partners will bring home the microservices, bring home the cloud, bring home GPT and all of it. So that was the overall plan, that was the overall theme. Okay, so now if you go talk to a person who's been through this journey today, they said growth strategy was about co-lending, co-branding. It was all about adding fintech partners, getting the latest technology onboarded. But wait, the moment the regulator came, the moment your compliance guy came, the moment your risk guy came, you had, anybody know which team this is? Which meme this is, sorry? No? This is called the bike fall meme. Yeah, it's kicking yourself. Yeah, you can choose the words. So this was clearly, the kind of theme that most of us have seen. As we move forward and look at it, another theme that has happened clearly, while we've talked about managing risk compliance, sorry not to pick on RBI, but I'm telling you, people could say you put IRDA, you put SEBI, regulator ka jo naam hai dalo udhar. This is roughly the status. House on fire. After they come, visit you and go. Because they can ask 100 questions. As I told you earlier, they can choose co-lending, co-branding, data privacy, money laundering. They can choose the word and they can question you. And as they question you through the process, what you realize is that there is a huge set of things that this entire journey seems to have missed out on, things that we need to catch up on. So what we said was the third element of it was leverage technology. Now this is a little close to my heart, as a technology provider and corporate presentation time. So what were the elements of this leverage technology that we were talking about over this point in time? We're talking about fintech integration, we're talking about privacy and governance, we're talking about stop financial crime real time, leverage AI, ML. So if you just broke up the third theme of, leveraging technology, these were the elements that came in. If you were to suddenly go and ask, I got this requirement from the regulator and, he wants to know, inclusive of all partners, how many customers do we have as on a given date? in many a case, you come to a statement where one does not simply know how many accounts we added in March. I have like 20 partners, I have 30 systems, 3 on AWS, 4 on Azure, 2 I don't know where, and then I have to add and give you a number. So there's a whole bunch of data flow that is still, if you were in an extremely partnership-oriented era, that needed to come in, that needed to get integrated. So what we realize now is that it's not easy to answer some of these questions. While I may joke about it, humor is a form of satire, is a form of intelligence, we'll choose those words, but what we're saying is this is a true problem statement if you go into a rapid partnership era. The regulator is now forcing many institutions to figure out all of this data. How many complaints did your partner get? Imagine having to integrate data of all complaints that were there for a partner who is doing a service, on a customer who's being on-sold by him. So it's like many stages down the line, but it is an expectation today that you will have this data. While this is one, getting the data, integrating it, you look at it from the other side, okay? Even if you had that data, you're suddenly told, boss, sab PII kahin nahi dikhna chahiye. And when that suddenly comes to a person who's been in the industry for 25 years, boss, we need to show that our data is encrypted. They go to their MIS team member who's been querying data, which he always said was real-time access to data. He was the guy who'd tell you this card was blocked yesterday, why? You had that guy in your team who was driving that, and when you suddenly went and told him this data needs to be encrypted, this needs to be protected, his first answer to it was, why Excel sheet mein lo, udhar star dikhao, because the entire system evolution in order to implement a level of data governance, a level of data privacy, from source system identification of PII down to reporting system decision making in terms of what fields need to be displayed, is a process. It's not going to happen overnight. There is a significant journey in the path. So either you move to institutions which are at two extremes. Let's block everything, and the guy who needs the data, let him come through all the friends that he knows for the last 20 years to get the data. Or on the other side, we have all data open for the right people. So it's a massive challenge that many institutions are going through. On the other side, an area that we work today, very close to our heart, people talking about mule accounts, the account flow. When the regulator comes up and says, how often do you check for mule accounts? An answer that was valid 6 months ago or an answer that was valid 1 year ago is no longer valid. It's almost like you should be doing it real time. And here are systems which were built in an era when we used to write a SQL query, end of the day, end of the week, and take an extract. But today, if you want to identify a mule account, the mule account cleans up and moves out of the bank within the end of 6 hours. If you look at the kind of spam SMSs that you receive, for example, today is the last day to pay your electricity bill, here is the link. You would be surprised that even in our building, in a high-flying society in Mumbai, there were people who fell for it. They clicked on the link and thought that this was the time for them to pay and earn brownies from their wives. Only to realize that that money got channeled through a bank account which was opened as a savings account in a bank, in a digital channel, then was cleaned out every 2 hours, every 3 hours. Please realize, even here the fraudster is smart enough. He knows I won't take out all money through one channel. He knows I have to use my ATM card, I have to use NEFT, I have to use UPI. Because they've got an FRM running on one channel. If I go across and I run it, I'll escape it and I'll get my 2 days of time to make party, which will return more than 500x of the cost of sending that SMS to people or buying that database and sending that whole process. So clearly, there is a bunch of solutions, there is a bunch of technology in all of this that we're working. It's also a corporate presentation, it's not only memes. So what does Drona Pay do? So Drona Pay works in 2 areas only, real-time decisioning and analytics and reporting. In real-time decisioning, we already work with a bunch of banks, financial institutions in the area of real-time decisioning for fraud, for AML, for mule accounts, and for identifying the new age use cases more about claims fraud that we are building on. So what we say is we are a platform on which we create new parameters and use these parameters in a way that is extremely robust. And I'll show you later as I tell you about how we are using ChatGPT through this. At the other end of the play, we do reporting and analytics. So if you have a bunch of fintechs, you have a bunch of participants who are creating data, we integrate all of this data to help you be able to provide data governance, data lineage, and operational reporting. So these are the two areas of the corporate presentation that I had to cover. I'll just dive into 2 slides to give you a little bit of detail. So from a transaction monitoring standpoint, most risk engines operate with data sets which are like, I'll take transaction data, I'll take master data. We are significantly more robust. We built in a new age world where we say we integrate device IP, we integrate CRM, IVR data sets, we integrate repayments data if you're trying to bring down delinquency, and therefore provide a comprehensive fraud, AML, and behavioral biometric platform. We're built in a real-time world, and we love that claim. So just taking that same logic forward, whether it's claims fraud and you say I have practitioner profile, I have agent profile, I have a provider profile, and I want to integrate all of this in order to take a decision on a claim, that's the kind of decisioning that we help provide. So the team at Drona Pay, so we come from our experience in working and setting up NSE, the National Stock Exchange. So for us, transactions per second volume is something that we love. Low latency is something that we were born and bred on. So if you're saying I want it in 100 millisecond, 30 millisecond decisioning, that's where we're built for, that kind of statistical modeling. Coming to the last element, how will we bring Gen AI into this? Okay, I'm going to have some memes after this, but just before that. So the big challenge in this was, how transformative is Gen AI into play? So let's say we go through a financial crime process where we're talking about API data, parameter generation, where you're saying how many transactions did I get from this IP address in 30 minutes, how many transactions from dark web in last half an hour. So you're building all of these, you're building a new rule. Guess what we did? Before we came to you, we said, let's just look at all of this talk about ChatGPT, Google Bard, and what do we actually do? So I said, Satish, let's just go and ask Google Bard, can you build a rule for me? Okay? Can you build a rule which will be built in such a way that it can get embedded into Drona Pay's platform? So we told it, first we said, can you generate JSON logic? It said, absolutely. So I said, oh, is that so? So I said, can you give me a rule? So I gave it a bunch of different rule conditions. Let's say it's a health claim of this type. Can you build out a rule that that claim, if it is greater than 30,000, should be stopped? It generated. And I can tell you one more thing. Syntactically, it was slightly more efficient than what we would have built out in some of the cases. There were mistakes as well. So what we realized was, a lot of it is also where we are, going slow on imagination. If we actually take pieces in our stack and break them down to individual problems, we've realized internally that we can start integrating, if not ChatGPT, Llama 3, which is available open source tech stack to build rules into our platform. And that's what we're doing. So instead of we telling business analysts build the rule, business analysts calling IT calling tester, how are we going to do that process? Every one of those areas in my previous slide, I realized can be automated. Now you will say, I was waiting for you to tell me that, boss, I'll come in the morning and problem is solved, but you're telling me each of my problems will become a little better. I'm saying I'm limited by my imagination today, but as I realized, each step of the problem that we are facing can be automated significantly. That's where we are working on right now. I know there are others who are going to promise you end-to-end delivery. I've still not reached that realm of reality. So we are currently going through this process of ChatGPT, or in that sense, doing generative AI in order to improve our efficiency. I have to end with a meme, so I'm going to give you a choice of two memes. It's the season for Donald Trump, and someone's agreed to a debate. So I said Donald Trump's presidential circular is one way, and I'll end with the last slide. Okay, here's another meme question. Anybody know which meme this is? Who's the guy? Okay, it's called the Drake meme. Okay, so a lot of work to do with the teenagers is all I can tell you all while this is happening. So anytime you all need an upgrade on fraud, you all need an upgrade on data integration, talk to us. We're Drona Pay. Thank you.
Satish, I would request you to kindly join the stage again if you could. And ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause to Mr. Satish Kashyap, CEO and co-founder from Drona Pay. I would now like to call on stage Mr. 𝐅𝐢𝐧𝐚𝐧𝐠, Group Director, Fraud Risk Management, CFCC from Standard Chartered Bank, to kindly do the honors of felicitating our speaker here. Thank you, Satish. Thank you, 𝐅𝐢𝐧𝐚. And welcome to the stage again. Ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause to Mr. Satish Kashyap, CEO and co-founder from Drona Pay, for that fantastic presentation on fighting financial crime in the Gen AI era. Thank you, Satish.